The views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Union Broadcasting, Inc., Hot Talk 1510 KCTE, or its employees. The host is solely responsible for the on-air content.
Welcome to the Business Hour on ESPN 1510. This morning, it's the Entrepreneurial Moment, and here are your hosts, Brian Sullivan, Pat Madden.
ESPN 1510, the Entrepreneurial Moment, your host, Brian Sullivan. Behind the glass, we got my man Shane. On my left, I got the very handsome and feathered Patrick Madden. We got a great program for you. What's the objective of the show? It's real simple. We find the world's smartest people. We either get them here in studio or we get them on the phone, and we ask them all sorts of questions that standard business interviewers do not ask them. We get them all shaky. We crack them open. They don't know what to say, but you know what? You steal their lessons. You go back, you become rich and famous. You lead millions of people, and someone builds a building after you if you do exactly what we tell you. Yeah, you have your name on something. All right? So I'm holding a book in my hand, Patrick, and I'm staring at a man called Harry S. Campbell. He's the author of a great book called Get Real Leadership. And perhaps the coolest thing about Harry, aside from the fact that he's a very handsome fella, is the fact that he's not one of these guys who just wrote a book about leadership. He's been a leader.
Yeah.
He's done. He's worked with Fortune 500 companies. He's had everyone from 30 people working for him to 3,500 people working for him. So Get Real it talks about the lessons that he has learned in his years doing it. And so, Harry, welcome to the studio, my friend.
Thanks very much. I can tell it's going to be an experience.
I told you.
Yes, hold on tight.
Very formal show. Very formal. All right, so, hey, tell us, give us a little bit of your background. What got you to this book I'm holding in my hand right here?
Well, the furthest back and the best and most important thing you need to know is I'm a Hoosier. Bobby Knight was my coach the whole 20 years I was growing up in Indiana, so that defines me. I was in the gym when he threw the chair, by the way.
Were you?
February 23rd, 1985.
Yeah,
he should have thrown it. It was a horrible call, and we hate Purdue. It's very important.
I do.
Should have thrown the chair. I like that.
I went to Vanderbilt, was a history major, decided if I wanted a job, I needed to have some skills, so I got an MBA, hired by P&G, and they really gave me the training that I needed to get started in business. It was a great place to work and be from, so I spent 7 years at P&G. And then 20 years ago next month, I came to Kansas City to work for Sprint. I've been in Kansas City since. I've had a winding path that included Sprint and Embark, really cool jobs. But also in my late 30s, I quit the big companies, was the owner of a sports marketing firm. We became the Mr. K Award winner in town in 1998, which was cool. That's of all the things that I've done with regard to my jobs, I think that was the most self-satisfying because you have a company of 25 or 30 people. It's a major event in this town. The Chamber of Commerce puts it on where they honor small businesses, and our company was named #1 in the entire region, so that was cool.
Tell me
Very
why.
good.
What do you think got you that award?
There was a list of criteria that were very straightforward and cool, and it had to do with, obviously, revenue growth. It had to do with profitability, and it had to do with culture, giving back, and how you treated your customers and your people. There was a series of questions you had to answer to get yourself in the game, and then one of the examiners would come out and spend time with your people and your customers to understand you. Matter of fact, Joyce Hayhow from the Kansas City Business Journal was our examiner, and she came out and spent time with us and realized that we had a pretty cool company going, and so we were named the winner.
What do you think she saw, though? What's the biggest thing? Because you mentioned a few things, how we treat our people, how we treat our customers, and then the culture. So to be #1, there had to be something that separated you from everyone else who was not #1. How would you describe it? And keep all humility aside, let it all hang out. What made you so good?
I think it was the principles that I learned at the beginning of my career watching Sam Walton operate, and very simply, it's what the book is about, called Get Real Leadership. I truly believe in the principles of servant leadership. And I'm not going to get hokey about it. I'm going to put it into very business terms. I heard Sam Walton say this, and I operated this way in the small company and in big ones. My theory was, as a leader, my job was to make the people that work for me make their job easier. I heard Sam Walton say that, and then Sam Walton said something different also. He said, if you get it backwards, you won't work here. I had been used to hierarchical companies where my job was to make my boss's job easier.
Yeah.
No. If you flip it around and say, okay, I'm the leader, in order to win and get competitive and really make a difference in the business environment, what you have to do is you have to make your people enjoy their work, and you have to make their job easier. They have to be good, no question. But if you do that and you can invert that pyramid, it is amazing the results you can generate. I think she saw that culturally, and I think she saw that in the business results.
Well, and you think about it, it's kind of judgment hour when you have a third-party person coming into your office.
Yeah.
and that person's going to ask some hardcore questions of the people. The truth comes out in there,
Yes.
right? I mean, what a nice thing to hear that the two most important people as it relates to business are your internal and your external customers. Nothing else really matters.
And what a great way to validate the awards. Some of those awards are, are you going to buy an ad in the magazine?
Yeah,
are you going to do your projections and do your form? But to have somebody come out and say, okay, because your employees it's a pretty easy read. I would think after spending several hours, several days with some employees, eventually it's going to rise to the top.
Yeah,
it's
so it's a pretty foolproof.
That whole experience was cool because what they do, the Chamber of Commerce names the top 10, and then they vet the top 10 and celebrate and get every one of those get a chance to really enjoy that. And then you go to the big luncheon in May, and by the way, you don't know whether you've won. You show up, there's 1,500 people in Bartle Hall, and they're announcing the winner. We were the only one that had an M as the first letter. Our whole company sat at 2 tables. And when they announced the winner and they started to say Marketing Associates International, we just went berserk.
Wow,
we were standing on the tables and going crazy because it really was a validation of how we operated internally and externally. I love the way you said that, Pat.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, all right. So we know the simple formula is that the two folks who have to like you are the people who are who you got to motivate, and then the people who are going to cut a purchase order, right?
Yes.
But it's got to go beyond this. So let's say I'm going to start my own business, all right? And I come to you and I say, all right, I'm a pretty good guy. I care about people. I believe in servant leadership. I'm going to build a team that fully understands that I love and care about them, and hopefully they will be motivated. I will do everything I can to communicate with the customers, but now I have to create a brand around this. There's a lot of different ways I can go with a foundation of caring, selflessness, love, right? So that's built. And so in your book, you really do a great job of breaking it down. And one is get real with yourself is a section you talk about. And there's a few things you say. You say you have to create a brand, you have to share your brand, you have to use your brand. How do I create a brand when I'm starting from nothing?
I think you already have one anyway. The question is, do you want to change it? If you need to, then you're creating it. If you like what you have, then you might be tweaking it and honing it. My theory that I learned early in my life at P&G, 7 years there, I learned a lesson, and it's a fascinating one. P&G would say, we don't sell toothpaste. We sell Crest. Never get those two things confused. And I realized it's because Crest is a brand that has colors that it stands for. Yeah. It has benefits it stands for. It has distribution channels, price points, competitiveness. And I realized I have a brand too. So I started to think about that. What is my brand? And then what you need to do is you need to find out what your brand is to the outside world, because don't kid yourself, the brand that you believe that you have isn't necessarily what the world thinks. So my theory here is you have to find out, and I use it as a 7 words test. What are the 7 words that you stand for? I like to say, write them down yourself. Find out anonymously what the world thinks your 7 are. 5 or 6 people that know you well, let them do it anonymously. If not, they'll pat you on the head and tell you your smile's great and you're smart and your hair looks good. Right. Has to be anonymous. And then try to figure out the gap between what the world thinks and you think. If the gap is small, you've got your brand, you like it, you move with it, and what you do is you start to operate that way. If not, you might say, wow, people don't think that I'm this. People think I'm a negative person. I don't like that. I don't think I am, but the world does. Yep. So what I really like to do is say, figure it out, then create it if you want to.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. That's a real simple exercise, right?
It is, and on my website at harryscampbell.com, I have one of the little links you can go to. It's called My 7 Words, and it gives you the tools to be able to send emails to people anonymously. They will give you 7 words that they think about you. It'll come back, be collected, and sent to you, and you don't know who sent what. But it gives you a chance to figure out what the world thinks about you. I've been doing some speeches lately on Get Real Leadership, and we've just launched this website. I gave a speech recently in St. Louis to 110 people. Something like 53 of them after that meeting went to the website and did this.
Beautiful.
And I will warn you when you do it the first time, and I've done it a bunch of times over the last 10 years, it's disconcerting because there's at least 1 word of the 7, if not 2, that you don't agree with or you don't like.
Yeah.
And what you'll say is, whoa, wait, that's not me, that's not me. And then you realize that's what the world thinks of you.
That's right. And,
it doesn't matter
That's right.
what you think of you. It matters what the gap is between those.
That's beautiful.
I like that.
That's beautiful. All right, so where can they go to this? harryscampbell.com?
Yes.
All right, that's Harry, SCAMPBELL. Go there. You might learn some words. I'm afraid, Patrick.
I'm afraid to send that send button.
You know what?
To all those people.
You don't need to be anonymous. I will tell you exactly what I think of you. Tall.
Be gentle. Be gentle.
dark, sexy.
Tall.
And damn it,
I have not heard that one in a
You're
long time.
smart, too. Well, listen, hey, come on back. We're having a great time. We are with my man, Harry S. Campbell, the author of the book, Get Real Leadership. You want to get real. We got some great lessons on the other side of this commercial break. You listen to ESPN 1510.
Damn, but I did it anyway.
Welcome back. ESPN 1510. Baseball season's upon us. Shane. I know
Smack of the bat.
You're a big baseball fan. What did you think of our Kansas City Royals, my friend?
I thought they did well. They contained Pujols.
They contained Pujols. They made him. I mean, it kind of looked like a sort of like a chubby out of shape guy up there swinging that bat, didn't he? What's happening to
He had
him?
A couple of hard balls though.
He's off the juice.
You know what? I don't know. I don't think he ever did it. I think he's one of the pure.
Yeah, like Harry said, he's mentioning like the coin. Maybe he got a little lazy with $400 million in his
Made
pocket.
like what, 24 million this year?
Yeah.
I think I'd go
At
a little
least.
lazy too.
Yeah, but you know our young little whippersnappers went out there like a bunch of little
Go
gnats,
get 'em,
took
boys.
them all down, huh?
I think they
Bunch of
got
ankle biters.
a little taken by the moment Friday, and then they got back into it Saturday, and
Yeah.
I think they're going to be good.
Yeah,
No,
well,
it'd be
listen-
a great,
I hope so.
great
Listen,
season.
I'm sitting with another hapless Cub fan here, Harry Campbell, who's, and in fact, in his book, he talks about how fully depressed he's been over his years as being a Cub fan. And but the Boston Red Sox gave him hope that if those losers can win, that anybody can smell and
They're having
taste
kind of a
victory
rough year.
if you're patient. Right? So maybe patience is a big quality of a great leader. Is
We've
that what
been-
you're saying?
It could be, but that's not me. So
All right,
yeah,
well-
I do.
He
my
just
best.
said he was impatient.
You're impatient.
Yes, I think three people's a line, and I don't wait in lines.
Ooh, I like that. So you kind of you'll cut in front of people.
Yeah,
You rude.
I grew up in a hometown of a couple thousand people in southern Indiana. There was one stoplight, and it was optional, and so I just don't like lines.
All right, well, listen, I want to get back because you have a great exercise that you mentioned. If you're just joining us, you need to go to harryscampbell.com. There's a great little quiz, assessment, whatever you want to call it, but it's going to allow you to send out an invite to folks, and it's going to ask them to describe you in 7 words. And those 7 words, you might learn a lot about yourself. There's how you perceive yourself, but then how the world perceives you, and then you've got to reconcile which one you want to be, I guess.
You know, you're speaking
Right?
about building your brand. You know,
Yeah.
like you were saying, everybody has a brand, and
Yeah.
this is just testing it.
I
You
love
think
it.
you may know what your brand is, but you better be ready to hear the answer when how people see you.
Amen.
Perception.
All right, Harry, let me ask you. What 7 words describe you?
There's about 11 that consistently come up. The only 7 that I'm willing to go public with
Yeah.
are number 1 is team-oriented, and I love that one because growing up as a basketball fan in Indiana, we don't put the names on the back of the jerseys in Indiana. You play for the university. So I'm very team-oriented. I'm an affiliator. I like to be surrounded by people that I like and are A-plus players, and I'm very team-oriented. I have a positive attitude. My theory is life is too short to be grumpy and complaining, so I'm positive. I'm tenacious. Man, I hate to lose. That's why I became a cross-country runner, because I wanted to be in sports, and the only sport that you don't need skill in, you need tenacity, is long-distance running.
He still holds the 10,000-meter record at
Vanderbilt University.
Vanderbilt University.
I do.
Give me some knuckles there.
We're
Good,
30 years removed from that. That was also 30 pounds ago, though. So
Holy
It's
cow.
still 10,000. Hey,
Well, listen,
still a record.
I hate to lose.
Yeah.
I went for a 3-mile run this morning. I was crying at about the 2-mile mark. So I just, you know what? I just walked it out.
There you go.
So, you know,
You did it. You were in motion.
It's right. You know, I'm not tenacious, but damn, I'm fast. That first 100 yards. All right, continue.
I'm optimistic. I'm a Cubs fan, right? We've
Yes!
had a bad century, but this is the year.
What do you think of Bartman?
Oh.
I don't want to talk about it. Move on, please.
Ouch.
Go.
I'm curious that you can't be a liberal arts major. I was a history major and an economics major at Vanderbilt without being a liberal arts, without being questioning and asking questions. And I love being curious. It helps you in business. It helps you with your relationships with people and customers. I'm very mischievous. This show kind of plays right into my strength because you all are, I think irreverent is an understatement, and that feels good to me. I operated. You guys you'll love the
mark the tape on that one.
We are irreverent.
I operated the same way I am today, and with the way you all operate with the board of Embark and with senior people in companies, because my theory is if that's the way you are. It's my brand, and so I operate that way. I'm mischievous. I use humor to cut tension. I use humor because I like to laugh. And then the final one is I'm impatient. I I am crazy impatient, and that gets in my way sometimes. It's not positive, but I tried to avoid this one in my 7 words. And when I describe myself, I used to use driven all the time. And my wife said, I think you're impatient. They kept coming back, and after the 11th consecutive person said, "You're the most impatient person I've ever met," I had to change it and say, it's one of my brand attributes.
Yeah. Well, how do you change that? That's a hard one.
I actually don't think you do.
I don't
think you do.
Oh, I am too, though.
And
really?
Yeah. That would definitely be on mine.
I know it is
very-
when we coach.
Oh,
You and I have had these conversations. Look at these. Don't they get it? So yeah, you and I definitely have that impatient gene. But how do we fix this?
Well, here's what I'll say about any of the traits. Don't make the mistake to believe that any of them are right or wrong. That's not the point. The point is to figure out who you are, who the world thinks you are, and figure out the gap and decide whether that's okay. I am impatient. I can pray all I want for patience, but at the end of the day, I get opportunities to test my patience, but I don't get better. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I understand that. What I have to do sometimes when I make huge decisions that have months or years worth of implications at a company, I had to make sure that I wasn't making an impatient decision. You have to basically manage around it. I don't think you necessarily can change it. There are attributes you can change, but some of them you just have to recognize them.
Well, and I think that's a great point. Is being aware of where you're not so good. Yeah, I compare it to listening skills, right? Which is obviously an enormous asset of a get real leader.
Yes.
And in my case, my book's called Precise Leadership. A big component of this is the ability to keep being curious and keep learning and keep listening. Good example is every week I do seminars, and there's always a section in there where I talk about listening skills. And I tell people, I said, guess what? You will never arrive. You will never be a great listener. It's okay. But being aware that you might not be where you need to be, and then just work on it. That's all we can keep doing is just keep working on it. And then it's the being smacked in the head when you're looking at your wife and you know you're not listening. This awareness of try to do it better. So you're able to see it while it's happening a little bit earlier. That's the gift that is given to you. And I think with impatience, the same thing.
You know what? In some things that you're bad at, all you can do is strive for mediocrity, and that's way better than where you were. So you got to be okay with that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think that's a great point.
You got your strengths. You got to recognize those too, and you got to play to those.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about patience as it relates to leadership. I think there is a place for impatience when it's thought through. Point being is that one of the biggest, I think, detriments to leaders and managers is certainly in large corporations who are bound by bureaucratic process, too much of it. Certainly there's room for process, is this frozen, I can't make a decision for the fear of failure.
Right.
And so I will analyze, and we will have 4 meetings as opposed to 1 meeting, and it's so I cannot make a decision. If impatience fuels a sharp, early decision, I say impatience is okay.
I completely agree. If you talk to 50 people that worked with me, they would tell you that one of my brand attributes is that I hate meetings, and that worked to my advantage. There were times that I needed to be deliberate and make decisions, but when you really hate meetings at a big company, what happens is it means that you free up some of your time that would have normally been eaten up, and you get the opportunity to listen better and make better decisions. Despising meetings is really weird to work at a big company, but it worked really well for me.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it'll work in every size company, right? Because what we know is you will never hear someone say, Harry, it's been killing me. I want a webinar. Can we have let's get together and have a go-to meeting. I don't know why I need this, Harry, but I need that. Right. No one will ever say this. And it's because leaders have blown it. What I mean is we've been desensitized. Meeting attendees have been desensitized by poor leaders. Right?
Okay.
I look at it as sales calls, right? So we think about it. What is the perception of salespeople? The perception of salespeople is they're pushy. They steal my time. They don't respect my time. Well, why is it? It's because too many salespeople have made sales calls with no objective, and of course they've wasted people's time. Same thing. Meetings are not bad, but what has happened is leaders have blown it because they've had so many bad ones. Now when the folks have to log on to go-to meeting, or when they show up in that meeting, they're already saying this is going to suck.
Yeah.
Now, another thing happens. Leaders, be very careful of this. Do not be the type of manager or leader who starts the meeting out by saying, people, we've got a lot to cover today. We've got a lot to... Stay with me. Why don't you tell them the next 2 hours is going to absolutely stink, right? And you automatically shut them down.
Right.
So I think some points is, you can have a meeting, but you better have an objective, meaning they have to do something as a result of you being there. If you expect them to do nothing, don't bring them to a meeting, right?
Right.
Actually, P&G taught me something that you really love, Brian. The 3 things that are very simple, and I think this is why I carried my attitude toward meetings to everywhere I went. First of all, if you didn't have an agenda, you didn't meet, you leave. Second of all, you had to know what decisions needed to be made. Otherwise, you leave. And third of all, within the day, intraday, let's say within 5 hours of the meeting being over, there had to be a summary, and it didn't have to be fancy, but the summary of decisions made and responsibilities for actions. And I tell you, it's tedious, and when you're the young person in the room having to take the notes and do all that stuff, you don't like it, but it gets ingrained in your head that you're not wasting your time, you're making decisions, and you're moving on.
Yeah, yeah. And that
Boom.
sheet of paper becomes the plan, all right? And also, it's measurable. Now we can look back and say we either did or we didn't do what is on this sheet. So if you're walking away with no plan or nothing written down,
But you've been, I mean,
what a waste.
It's that Groundhog Day thing. I mean, we've had some brilliant people on the show for the last, 5 years or so we've done this.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's listening, having an agenda. Like you always laugh and say, if I want to go have a cup of coffee with a guy, if I sit down with a guy and say, hey, Pat, good morning, and you're staring across from the table, you better say, can I have coffee with you? I got to bounce something off you. I want to bounce this idea off you.
Yeah.
Or I've got to get something off my mind. Boom. You go in there, and it's done, and it's great.
There's
You
a
get something
reason
out of
for
it.
the cup of coffee.
Right,
I mean,
but
it's
don't just show up.
hey, I want to, let's just shoot. I want to network.
Yeah.
Why? Now, if your whys are okay, then we're going to have a damn cup of coffee.
Right.
And we're going to get some stuff
Right.
done. But we just don't have time anymore, right? No one will say, Harry, all I have is time on my hands. I'm looking
Yeah.
for a few extra things to do, right? And no one's doing that.
Let me combine 2 thoughts we had. We talked about impatience, meeting, but then also productivity and getting results. I used to say, to me, a lot of the little actions you take are more important than the principles, because the principles, frankly, don't change decade to decade. We just have people that don't execute against them.
Right.
Listen
Right.
better. Oh, what the heck?
Yeah,
That's
right.
real fancy,
Never heard
right?
that one, right.
Yeah. What I do is I would get up in front of my folks and just pound into their heads that they need to do things I don't know about. Now, that doesn't sound very fancy, but when you're working at a really big company and the boss says time and time again, do things I don't know about. No, I'm not talking about making major strategy and pricing decisions
Right.
that are out of your frame of reference and or authority, but I'm saying do things. What I'm doing is I'm saying you're good at your job. I trust you. Get it done. My high school basketball coach, I loved what he said. He said, do something. Make errors of commission, not omission. Don't sit around and wait for me to tell you. Do something. I would say, do things I don't know about. My peers didn't always like that because they wanted to know what's going on. Because if you're the wrong kind of leader, I think, wants to make sure their fingers in everything, and they're all over it. I say, do things I don't know about. And then they come to me with pride and give me the things they've done and tell me what's up. And even if I didn't necessarily agree with it, you have to have the right reaction to that to get the culture going forward.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that's good.
Gosh, and there's so many bad managers and leaders with their hands in everything,
Yeah.
And I just wonder, how did you get that job? Because you had another stiff who promoted you,
Yeah.
for crying out loud.
He hired the guy he is.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
You know,
That's
one of the most important jobs you can do as a leader is manage your boss, by the way. And I wanted to have a culture that I liked and I enjoyed and the people I wanted to be around. So one of the most important things you do is have to manage your boss. I've had 24 of them now. My wife is my current boss. Boy,
Yeah.
she's the best I've ever
Yeah,
had. 24 bosses in the business world, and they had a mixture of high maintenance and micromanaging, et cetera. My job was to keep them away so my people and my folks could do what we needed to do, enjoy ourselves, and get great results. And it's not always easy. If you don't focus on it, you can get eaten up by basically passing the stuff down the hill.
Right.
Just keep it going down the hill. That's a bad idea.
All right, listen, you need to go to www.harryscampbell.com. There's some great stuff there. This book, Get Real Leadership, it's a quick read. So this you're not going to have to spend 3 weeks on this thing. It's going to make an impact on you quick. We got a couple more lessons. So would you stay with us just for a few more minutes after a commercial break there?
I'd love to.
All right.
Great.
Because we're having some fun, aren't we?
Oh, heck yeah.
Because we always have fun on ESPN 1510.
There's a tradition in tournament play to not talk about the next step until you've climbed the one in front of you. I'm sure going to the state finals is beyond your wildest dreams, so let's just keep it right there. Forget about the crowds, the size of the school, their fancy uniforms, and remember what got you here. Focus on the fundamentals that we've gone over time and time again. And most important, don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners. Okay?
All right, Patrick. Go ahead. Come on, Patrick. Let's go.
All right!
Come on. Let's go. Let's
do it.
Huh?
Let's go!
I'm telling you what, if they heard
Oh,
it,
look at you.
man, I'm telling you.
Oh, there it is. There it is. We're Hoosiers. The Hoosiers. Look at this. See, we put that right out for you, Harry.
Oh,
I tell you what, if they hear it and stand on the I'm telling you what, chills.
Yeah,
I've seen that movie 20 times. And I love it.
It's not a
I mean,
sports
look at that.
movie, by the way. It's a movie about life. That's the beautiful thing
Oh,
about
yeah.
that movie.
Oh.
And
Love
one
it.
of my high school rivals, Milan Indians, they were the ones that Hickory was based on. One of my high school
Really?
rivals have the banner in their gym.
Wow.
State champions 1954.
Isn't that awesome?
300 kids in their school.
Well, just listen to
300
the
kids.
Listen
Wow.
to the speech, right? So as you
fundamentals.
listen to it's certainly applied to everything
Yeah.
we
Yes.
talk about here as it relates to business.
I'm
Yeah.
impressed.
Business.
Shane,
Oh yeah.
look at that.
Huh? Listen, that's what he does. He's good. He's the mix master back there.
That was all Brian. You got to give
Yeah,
Brian
that was all
props
me.
for
That
that.
was, you know why? Because it's my all-time favorite movie. In fact, it was so that movie it was in 1986, the year I graduated high school, and it was 88. I was walking in the streets of the Big Apple. I was in Manhattan, and Gene Hackman was walking down the road.
No way.
And I went up to him and I said, "Mr. Hackman, I just got to
We're going to run the
you
picket fence,
how
Gene.
much I love that movie, Hoosiers." He gave me a good. Yeah, get the hell out of here. And I went,
That's classic. That's a great one.
"What's up, Shane? What do you?"
When we were watching the Final Four, my wife brought to my attention that Thad Matta for Ohio State coach looks exactly like Gene Hackman
Like Gene.
in Hoosiers. Think about
The
it.
Ohio State guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. He does. Unbelievable. All right, hey, welcome back. ESPN 1510, the entrepreneurial moment. Our objective is to make you smarter and more skillful, more knowledgeable, just more motivated than most people, for crying out loud. Harry, because the formula is not difficult, yet most people blow it. A brief recap on some of the things we talked about. Understand what your brand is. It's real important. There's two things. There's what you think your brand is, and then what your internal and external customers think your brand is. There might be a gap there, but we have a way to heal it by going to harryscampbell.com. You're going to do an anonymous test, send it out to everyone you love and care for who also need to identify your brand. It might be, once again, your employees, it might be your customers, and see what the difference is, and then decide which lane you want to be in, right? The beautiful thing is through awareness, you can decide what you need to do to make it better. And so you're going to forget everything we told you today, and that's why you need to go to Get Real Leadership, and you can buy that at harrycampbell.com. Another cool thing, Harry, is you give everything to charity. Tell us a little bit about where do proceeds of this book go? Because I think it's real important, because it's what fueled you doing this.
It did. I give the proceeds from the book and the speaking engagements that I'm getting as a result of the book. And I've gotten 11 books so far around the country, which is very cool. I give all the proceeds to Head for the Cure, which is a brain cancer research charity that was founded in Kansas City and is becoming wildly successful and spreading around the country with races and money to be raised. Last year we grossed $600,000 and gave over $500,000 to charity to try to help find a cure for brain cancer.
Wonderful.
Very good.
What a great cause, right? And so certainly they can learn a little bit about this charity going to your site as well, right?
Yes, they can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so we talked a little bit about the brand. Now let's move on to something you have in your book, and you have a chapter called Cover Their Butts. Cover Their Butts. What is this as it relates to leadership?
I've had several times in my career where I've had great employees that have made mistakes, or I've had bosses that I might have loved, and they got a little exuberant and wanted to get too involved in our business, and I realized that if that was going to happen, it was going to mess us up. So what I always say is, if you have a bank account with people, what you have to do is you have to sometimes stiff-arm them. So I'm going to start with the employees. I've had a couple of great employees that in meetings went off the deep end with regard to how they operated with their peers or how they treated me. And at that point, I could easily have torched them because I was the boss. I had positional power at that point. I chose to take it in stride and then one-on-one deal with it. I had a person who worked for me who had been in the military, and he privately shared with me that if that had happened in his previous life, the person would have been fired. And I said, possible, but I have a great employee here who happened to have a bad day. I don't know why. I need to find it out, but it was tough. So you got to cover their butts sometimes when they make mistakes. Creating an environment where mistakes are okay is critically important. The same mistake twice or three times, But you have to allow people to do things to make mistakes, because if you don't, they're frozen. The other thing is managing the boss. You get a micromanaging boss, and what you have to do is say, okay, I got it. I will have my people do that instead of you keep asking and poking and prodding. I have had bosses that have demanded huge reports on Mondays, and it made the folks, I inherited a group, they had to work all weekend to do it, and I went to the boss and said, they've got a life. There are times that we want them to work all weekend, but not on a regular basis, because then when we need them to, they may not be have the energy to do it. I said, you have to respect that and those boundaries. And so covering their butts is managing the boss. It's covering for their mistakes privately. And it's also looking good when you need to. If I was talking to financial analysts or the board, I have to know my stuff. I have to be seen as someone that's in command of the business. Even if I'm really good with my people, I have to deliver the results. And if you do that, the people respect you, and then they turn their attention to the outside world to try to win for you and with you, not as a result of you.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a real important part, is that your knowledge and skill has to be superior to the people you're leading. Now, there's a little debate here. Some people say you don't need to know as the leader how to do everything. You delegate. I get that. But you think of the bosses. So if you said you had 24 of them?
Yes.
All right. So the ones who you really, really admired, I could imagine, would be the ones who you admired them because there was something in their brain that you needed. Right? They had the golden nugget. If they had nothing to give you, you would not need them. You would not respect and trust them.
Right.
And so I think a lot of times leaders and managers, I witness them, they stop learning. They think their knowledge and skill got them to this point, and they die. And what happens is the people below them know more than them. And when your people no longer need your knowledge and skill, they're not going to come to you. Now, you're going to have to spend time with them, but you know what? It's only because they have to be with you.
You have to. Yeah.
And Patrick, it's classic in sales. You know, I can't tell you how many companies I work with where the manager's coming in to work with the sales guy. Well, the manager doesn't know how to sell the thing.
Right.
The manager slows them down. The manager opens their mouth in front of the customer just to validate their managerialness.
Yeah. Image control.
And and the manager can't wait to go to lunch and have a 2-hour bowl of soup. Right now, I'm not trying to slam every manager, but that's the person who's you're my boss, but you're really not. Now, the guy or gal who comes into town and can help them understand something, or show them a different way, or give them freedom to be creative, or pull something out of them, or make them think in a way they didn't. Now that's something you need, that person to get you to the next level. You know, I wrote our co-author for Precise Leadership is a guy named Colonel Kevin Benson. He teaches planning at the Army Staff and Command College. And one of the coolest things he talks about is how you need to know how to fire the gun, right? And so the premise is he used to jump into tanks. And guess what? He said, I need to know how to fire that tank. Why? Because the people who are looking at it, they're looking to see, can that guy fire the tank?
Yeah.
And guess what? We call it street credibility. Mm-hmm. You need a little street cred, right? So you got to get out of that mahogany office a little bit sometimes, get your hands dirty, and then the folks will respect you, and then they'll follow you.
And one of the things you can do is to get street cred is to take the punches for people. That's another way to do it. You got a customer that's irate through no fault of an employee of yours. You stand in front of that and say, okay, here's the scoop, and I'm going to take responsibility for it. Those kind of things go light years with regard to street cred. I've had 24 bosses. 4 of them I would describe as excellent. One of those was Ron LeMay at Sprint. And I realized as you were talking that the 2 things that he had that were amazing to me were he was incredibly smart and knowledgeable in an industry that I didn't know. So I needed that from him.
Right.
And he had leadership skills that I needed to hone in terms of how to treat people and treat the business. And I was learning. And anytime you have a boss that you feel like you respect and you learn from, double win.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely, which means you need to dedicate at least an hour each week, leader, doing nothing but learning something new.
Yep.
Don't check email. Don't check voicemail. Do nothing but learn something new. And guess what? You'll be a Get Real leader. So make sure you go to harryscampbell.com. Harry, it's been an honor to have you in the studio. Come back and join us, my friend.
Thank you, Brian.